How was Hawaii, John?
It was, the weather was really good. Just dealing with a bunch of mainland Americans in COVID is not fun.
Better than dealing with a bunch of Vancouver Island people with COVID through the holidays?
No, American folks just don't get it. It's just unbelievable. I mean, they can get there. All they have to have is a negative COVID test. They don't have to vaccination or anything else to go from mainland to Hawaii. And the cases went from, it was really low. I mean, it's about like Island Health once you get the tourists there. So I think it was in the 30 range when we got there, beginning of December. When we left, it was 980 per day. So in a, like a health system with one hospital.
Okay, good morning. I think we're online and ready to go. And given that there are elections today, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I do want to take a moment to recognize that we are coordinating this meeting and that two of us in the boardroom here are on the traditional territories of the Tshot and Pechitsit First Nation. I also want to flag that our committee members are participating by Zoom this morning, and in the boardroom we have myself, Daniel Saya, the CAO, and we have Wendy Thompson, our corporate administrator. And only the two of us are here, well separated, and thus not wearing a mask right now. I noticed to participants that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube to the regional district website. And I will turn over the meeting to our General Manager of Administrative Services to conduct the election of Chair and Vice Chair for the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022. The process due to COVID is that the meeting is being held via Zoom. If there is an election for the chair and vice chair, then directors will be asked to email their vote confidentially to Wendy Thompson, the General Manager of Administrative Services. And the email and the notice will be sent out to the directors. The General Manager of Administrative Services and myself, the CAO, will then conduct the election and report on the results. At this point, I'll hand over the meeting to Wendy.
Okay, great, thank you. So I will call for nominations of chairperson of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022, a first time. Director McNabb?
I nominate Penny Cote.
Director Cote, do you accept that nomination?
I do.
Great, thank you. And I will call for nominations for chairperson of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022, a second time. And I will call a third time for nominations to the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022. Great. There being no further nominations, I declare Director Cote the chairperson of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now I will do the same process for election of vice chair. So I'll call for nominations for vice chair of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022, a first time. Director Shannon?
Thank you. I would nominate Director Beckett as vice chair.
Director Beckett, do you accept that nomination?
I do. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Beckett. And I call for nominations for vice chair of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022, a second time. And I call for nominations for vice chair of the Electoral Area Directors Committee a third time. Okay, there being no further nominations, I declare Director Beckett vice chair of the Electoral Area Directors Committee for 2022. Congratulations. And I'll turn the meeting over to Chairperson Cote.
Thank you. So thank you for that. We have an agenda before us. Can we have approval of the agenda, please? I'll move by Director McNabb, seconded by Director Beckett. All in favor? Thank you, carried. We have the minutes of the November 3rd, 2021 Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting. Can we have approval? Thank you, Director Shannon, seconder. Director Bodnar. Is there any corrections or all in favor? Okay, thank you, that carries. Okay, now we're on to request for decision. Annual review of the Electoral Area Director Committee terms of reference.
Chair Cote, sorry,
Yes.
I tried to get my hand up when we were at approval of agenda. I leave by 11:30 today, just so you're aware.
Okay.
From this.
Thank you for that. Okay, for the terms of reference, would that be,
I could quickly speak to that.
okay, please?
So in January every year, our standing committees review their terms of reference for the year. So I've just put this in front of the committee to review, and if there's no changes, that the committee endorse the terms of reference for 2022.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming everyone has reviewed this, and is there any issues that speak to anybody? Let's find it here. Okay, hearing none, would we have a motion then to,
Yes, if we could just have a motion for the Electoral Area Directors Committee to reconfirm their terms of reference for 2022 as presented.
okay, thank you. Not seeing anyone jump up. Director McNabb? I imagine you're moving this.
Yes, I am, sorry.
Okay, thank you. The seconder, Director Beckett. Okay, all in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, on to the Community Works Funds projects for 2022 to 2026. And
I can speak to that.
thank you.
So I just want to start by saying it's too bad that we're not all in the same room. I find this discussion a lot easier to do when we're all sitting together, but here we are on Zoom. So we'll try our best to make it flow and everyone to know where we're at. But presented to you today for discussion is a recommended allocation of community works funds for the draft 2022 to 2026 financial plan. This recommendation was developed by a group of staff, not just me, representing all departments, and was originally presented to the EA directors in November. At that meeting, there was significant discussion about the projects, but also some requests for the information to be presented by electoral area and for staff to identify the risk level of the projects. So that is what this report is doing today. It's laid out in that manner. When determining risk categories, staff considered factors such as health and safety, the environment, asset protection, as well as the financial sustainability of the different services. And these rankings have just kind of provided staff the ability to prioritize the projects to present to you. As discussed in this report, there are also many projects that were on the 2021 to 2025 financial plan. Most of these projects are either underway or completed. We're just finalizing some of the numbers for those as those last bills come in. But there's funding for 4 projects that staff believe is no longer needed. 2 of those projects being the Beaver Creek Community Club Park Bridge and the Sprout Lake Community Park Trail development. Both were successful in getting grant application funding from the COVID-19 Resilience Fund streams. So we have found alternative funding for those projects. And then 2 of the projects, the Salmon Beach Well development and the Bell Road Stewart Ave water system development, are just not ready to go at this time. So staff are recommending that we remove the allocations to those projects as part of this report today. If the allocation to those funding projects is removed, then there's approximately $3.2 million of funding that is available for allocation for 2022. And then we receive approximately $450,000 a year thereafter. There has also been 2 requests from funding from outside organizations. There's the Beaver Creek Community Club for $50,000 and the Cherry Creek Waterworks District for $750,000. So staff have not included these projects in our recommendations as the funding needs within the organization are so large, but draft resolutions have been presented under the options considered section of the report if the directors are looking to support those projects. Further, staff are happy, and there's a bunch of us on the line today that are happy to go through each of the projects individually in detail. I believe we did a bit of that at the November meeting, and I'm feeling like I think we know what a lot of these projects are, so I'm thinking it might be better just to have questions if you have questions on individual projects, but we're happy to do that if you would like. As for the process part of today's discussion, if directors are not comfortable passing the main recommendation, which is number 2, that kind of outlines what the overall staff plan was, then as an alternative, staff have prepared Appendix A found at the end of the report, and that just provides draft motions for each project individually to assist in guiding the discussion, because I think that might be helpful just with us all not being together in the same room. We thought that might be of assistance to us. And then while resolutions are passed, I have an Excel tracking sheet by electoral area that I will try to keep as up to date as depending on how fast you guys go, so that we can keep a track of exactly where we're at. And finally, just a reminder that this is not the final opportunity to have these discussions. This is kind of what we start in advance of the overall budget discussion. So if further information is required on a project, we can bring that back. Also, we don't need to allocate the full amount of the funding. UBCM has requested that the majority of the funding be spent by March 2024, but that obviously leaves us the 2023 budget season and year to spend this money. So if directors are more comfortable leaving some of the money unallocated for 2022, that is also fine. But just a reminder that March 2024 does come quickly, especially when a lot of these projects are construction and we're dealing with fish windows and all those fun things. I think that is it for me by way of introduction, and staff are happy to answer any questions the directors may have.
Okay, I have a question just to start off with. You have allocated, made recommendations for allocations for 2022. So I'm wondering if we can just approve that, and for this year's budget, if we can't come to any consensus going forward, there's a lot, it's very controversial. So I'm seeing that as an easy.
Sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. I just want to let everyone know that Director Roberts is having technical difficulties, but so he is participating by phone.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
correct. I'm here.
Great, thank you. I have technology problems.
Yes, Director Cote, we can definitely, like that resolution in the second resolution that has the big table in it, we could break apart that table however you want. For sure, that would be an option if we want to do some of them in bulk. I also organized in Appendix A, I actually started with all the resolutions that were for 2022 are the first resolutions. So we could just start on that list and start going down them and stop at any given point. Either way, whatever the directors are comfortable with, we can break it apart. As long as Wendy knows what we're talking about, we're good to go.
Okay, that's great. In my mind, it just made sense to just kind of take the beginning and move it forward, but it's up to the directors. How would you like to do this? Is there any questions at this time or pulling anything out? Director McNabb?
So, I mean, the short-term look at this, I'm relatively in favor of the 2022 issue. I don't quite understand why the Sprout Lake Fire Department takes priority over the Beaver Creek Fire Department as far as the renovations are concerned. The long-term out to 2024 picture, I don't agree with. I think that the effect of Community Works Fund is a reduction of taxation to each and every area. And I think that there needs to be a relative balance in that. Beaver Creek has 3,000 residents and approximately about 1,100 properties. And this funding, especially when we take it to fire departments and water and parks, really has a definite impact on taxation as we go forward. So Beaver Creek just had the largest increase in property values of the whole of the Alberni Valley. And so this impact is going to be amplified when we start talking about things that are general and not being able to be controlled by the director. Those items are going to go up proportionately because of the increase in taxation of assessed values of the properties, and a significant increase. I mean, it's not just a little bit. And when you're dealing with 1,100 properties, it's going to make a difference to each and every taxpayer that's in Beaver Creek. And these funds, when it comes down to working, particularly in our water system, which has ongoing issues with the in-ground services, and also with the reservoir that is past its service life, the secondary reservoir Consexus, these things are going to have to be addressed, even to the point of decommissioning the pump station on the Somas River. So the needs are ongoing. Their impact is taxation, and I really like to see a balance, a relative balance. I understand things like the waste management thing in Banfield. It's something that has to be done immediately and for the future. But some of the other things that are in there that create an imbalance, I just think we really need to look at that long-term picture, or leave it up to the new directors that are coming in November. So I think to try to put this forward without them understanding the impact is a bit short-sighted. Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Vaughn?
I just want to speak to the Sprout Lake, why the Sprout Lake Hall took priority over the Beaver Creek Hall. So in August of 2021, we decommissioned Hall 2 for the Sprout Lake Fire Department and redirected those volunteers to the other two halls. So not only is there not actually enough room for all the apparatus now at Hall 3, because we've had to expand it, there also isn't enough like lockers and areas for the volunteers. So that's why that one, and just from a workload perspective, we thought it was good to stagger them 1 year, do one project in 1 year and one in the next, because it's the same staff that support those projects. So that was why the Sprout Lake one, we just put a year ahead of the Beaver Creek project.
Thank you for that. Director Bodner?
Thank you. Yes, can we speak about something now that's in 2023 that I feel very strongly should be in 2022?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we were talking about the Cherry Creek Maplehurst parking lot, and it's considered as a low level risk. And I must tell you, those people who live, and John can back me up on this, that those people that live at the very end of Willow Road are really, really upset about all those cars that are parking over there. And as long as COVID is around, for sure, we're going to continue to have that vehicle problem at the end of Willow Road. And there's going to be a lot of flack about that, I think, in the springtime when the weather gets better. And I also question the amount of money that's there. I walk that trail a lot when it's not wet, and I think that much lesser funds could be allocated for a parking lot up on Consexus for that trail. So I really would like to see that go up to 2022. These people are going to be knocking on our doors. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Bryn?
Thank you, Chair Cote, and through the chair. Agreed, this is a high priority item for us. However, there's still a lot of planning required and design work. So we didn't feel that we could successfully accomplish that in 2022. What we have done is we have just started the project to do a park management plan. We've engaged a consultant, and as part of that process, we're going to be engaging the community, coming up with a long-term plan for the park. And we have identified parking. We already know that it's going to be a big issue, but as part of that plan, we hope that we will actually have sort of more of a detailed plan and a better cost estimate. We are expecting to hopefully get that park management plan, or at least the draft, ready by about mid-year. That is our game plan for 2022. So don't disagree on the level of priority, but just the ability to accomplish this year is, from a staff perspective, we don't think high.
I'd just like to say that Sprout Lake has had a parking lot at the end of the Lakeshore Trail on the books for a couple of years now and has never moved forward with it. And the people paying for that are the residents of Sprout Lake through Sprout Lake Parks. So I agree that this is not a high risk, but it's definitely something that a community needs. And we have Director McNabb next.
So the problem with this parking on the end of Willow Road is a dead end road. It's supposed to have a cul-de-sac built into it, which has never been done. And people are parking in front of driveways. They're parking on people's property. They're double parking. You can't get the garbage truck down that road. They have to actually go down in one lane and back up virtually half the road when they pick up either the recycling or the contracted to garbage. So it's a significant problem, and it's ongoing every day that is a decent day. So we either need to mitigate that problem by completely closing that park access off, or we need to make some kind of a temporary parking space that can be a substitute for the area that's being parked in now. Whether we make that cul-de-sac what it's supposed to be, or something has to happen, because these people it's driving them nuts. And it would, if it was a through fair roadway, it wouldn't be as big of a problem. But it's a dead end, and once you get cars parked on both sides of the street, you can't do anything there. And they're very, very frustrated with it. Part of it, a little bit of their own doing, because many of the neighbors there actually were participants in actually brushing out the trail so that people could get in there. But it kind of, it snowballed, and now they've got an issue that's substantial. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry?
May I make a comment?
Yes,
Director
please.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate the other comments. Well, we sent this Community Works Fund projects back to staff in November, and I think they've done a tremendous job. There are a lot of things that need to carry on, and unfortunately, according to what staff has a real handle on this, and I have to agree with the comments that they have put forward thus far. And with that, I'd like to I've reviewed each of the areas: the Beaver Creek Community Park Bridge, the Bell Road, Stewart Avenue Water System Development, Salmon Beach Water Well Development, and the information that goes along with those things, and the Sprout Lake Community Park Trail development. With that, I'd like to make that motion, if I could, that the Electoral Area Directors Committee remove the allocation of community works funding to the following projects that were previously included in the 2021-2025 Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Financial Plan, as the projects have either secured alternative funding or are not going to proceed at this time. A, the Beaver Creek Community Park Bridge, $25,000. B, the Bell Road Stewart Avenue Water System Development, $414,000. The Salmon Beach Water Well Development of $50,000. And the Sproat Lake Community Park Trail Development of $147,465. And further, if I could, that the Electoral Area Directors Committee approve the allocation of the Community Works Fund in the draft 2022-2026 financial plan as follows. And they are listed as such. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Beckett, is that a seconder? Okay. Is there any question on this? Director Shannon?
Yeah, one for point of order of process. That's two different motions, two separate motions.
Thank you.
Yes, I think
Okay, I'll make the.
it would be better
make the
if we
first
just did the second
yeah.
separate. Thank you.
So it would be the first motion then?
Correct.
Okay, Director Beckett, you second that? Okay, thank you. Is there any question on that motion? Director Shannon?
Thank you. I'm looking at Terry here for some clarification how I'm reading all the different charts in front of me. So if these numbers come out, this is affecting the numbers we're looking at on pages 2 and 3.
It does. It affects all. I didn't remove them from the projected numbers because I wasn't sure if you were going to pass them. So it gives us an additional, just give me 1 second. It gives us an additional $636,000 that can be allocated. So staff didn't consider the 636 additional when we were making our recommendation. I don't think it will change our recommendation at this time, but it would maybe give some additional funding if you're looking to give some money to the Beaver Creek Community Club or towards the Cherry Creek project, if that's what you're considering. But yes, it changes all the numbers in the rest of it by 636,000. And I would have to remove like them from the specific areas. So like right now, Director Cote's area has 414 allocated for the Bell Road, Stewart Road, and I haven't removed those from the amount to date that she's received.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, I'm good with this one right now.
Okay. Is there any other questions about this? I'm sorry to see the money from Bell Road be taken away, and I'm hoping that it can be reinstated in the future once they get some water in that area, because they do need it. That would be probably one of the only water services that Sproat Lake has. And yeah, thank you for that clarification. Director Bodnar?
Thank you. To the chair, I'm just wondering now, because I want to get this in the right place. So we're still going to continue to talk about the rest of the projects up to 2025. And then after that, can we talk about the Cherry Creek Fire Department? Because it doesn't seem to be fitting in there anywhere.
Ms. Bong, can you answer that? Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We can talk about it wherever Director Bodnar would like. Yeah, I would recommend that we finish passing this motion, and then if that's where we want to go next, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Is there any more comments or questions regarding this motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and none opposed. Thank you, that passes. Okay,
Secondly, I'd like to go ahead.
I just wanted to make a point about Director McNabb's comments regarding assessments of Beaver Creek. I too am really quite upset about the assessments that came in for Sprout Lake. Huge increases of over 40%. This is taking people that have properties now into a new assessment area where they no longer are qualified for any grants. That's a concern. So I'm sure we'll be talking about this afternoon at the board meeting. So very much of a concern. Okay, Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you. And just through the chair and recognition, Area C, for example, is one of the highest in the province, the increase in assessment. So we're not alone. Everybody's, you know, at their wits' end about this, I'm sure. So yeah, it's really problematic. Anyway, I'd like to make the second motion that the Electoral Area Directors Committee approve the allocation of the Community Works Fund in the draft 2022-2026 financial plan as follows. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Director Beckett?
Seconded. Cognizant of previous comments by other directors regarding this item, I think it's important that we get it on the table for appropriate discussion. Thank you.
Okay, any comments on this? Director Shannon? Director McNabb?
Thank you. My first question is Terry, on page 3, no, where am I looking? Oh, I see. We're going different by year here. Okay, I guess my comments on this whole thing, I really appreciate how staff have come up with this, because this wouldn't have been easy. And I agree. I mean, fire halls are always important, and these infrastructure that we need, that if it's not happening, we're seeing it affected on the tax base. I would like to have a discussion, since we've just removed 4 projects that were either not going to proceed or have alternate funding, to I will get my plug in about the Beaver Creek Community Hall. We did talk about this at the last meeting, and the ask of the hall is for $50,000 because they would like to add on to the building where the washroom facilities are and create another washroom that is accessible from the outside, because they have seen such an increase in park use since the basketball court was completed and the playground has gone up. A lot of people from in town and different areas coming out here, and because of the lack of facilities, volunteers and other park users have been cleaning up waste from people using the area as a washroom because there is no facility. So just kind of seeing, because it's an outdoor space with COVID and increased use, that is why that ask is there. And there's also, I think they included some money for some security cameras for this new facility to make sure everything is not being abused. And so I would like to see this go forward if we've freed up a little bit of extra money, not only for that reason, because that's not fair to volunteers or the community or the asset itself, but because where the allocation of money is going to all these projects that I agree are important, out of, if we go by population for what Beaufort would be kind of allocated based on population, for proposed projects that would actually go into Beaufort residents is just over $30,000 of $352,000. So I would really like to see some of that extra money we freed up come back into this electoral area for this community, if possible. So I'm going to leave that in everybody's hands to mull that over. And then we're talking about fire halls, and I also would like to see if we freed up some money, even if it's not the full amount. And I realize that Cherry Creek Fire Department is its own outside organization, but Cherry Creek and Beaufort residents do benefit from that. And I mean, we're seeing a need in Sprout Lake, Bamfield, and Beaver Creek that I think it's fair to share, if we can, some funds that way. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director McNabb and then Director Bodnar.
So I concur with regards to the funding for the Cherry Creek Fire Department rebuild. I think that because of our automatic mutual aid and the benefit of the extra equipment that we get unilaterally, I mean, we had a fire in Beaver Creek a couple of weeks ago. The Cherry Creek Fire Department was there, and as well as Sprout Lake and Port Alberni. So it's important to look at it as a group, and the equipment that's housed at Cherry Creek is beneficial to all of us in the Alberni Valley, because it just makes that we don't have to go out and purchase more equipment because we have the access to the existing equipment. So I think it's important to move that forward, and a couple of other things. I'm looking at 2025 and Beaver Creek Nordstrom Park and indicated as a low priority. Beaver Creek does not have one single child play park, none, zero. I've been trying to move this park forward for the last 8 years. And what we have there right at the moment is a great big grassy field. And really, I know that we need to deal with parking. I know that we probably need to deal with some kind of restrooms. But it's kind of the gestation period of an elephant, this damn thing. I've been pushing. We've had so many other priorities and increases in taxation that I've back shelved it. The water system is important. The fire departments are important. We had a huge increase in fixed costs from staffing and operations of the ACRD. And so I've moved it out of high priority as we've gone along, but it's getting to a point of being a little bit ridiculous when the park for Bamfield is ahead of my park. It's like, and we could go, it's flat, level, there isn't a tree to remove or anything. Let's just go in there and get it done. So I'd like to hear from staff with regards to that particular point. Thank you. You're muted.
I think
Director
she's
Cote.
calling on me, but she's muted. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We'll hear from Terry and then from Director Bodnar.
Sure. So those are not priority rankings, those are risk rankings. And because nothing exists, there's no risk to us. There's no risk that the asset's failing and that we're having legal risk because of it. There's no health and safety risk. It doesn't exist. So those are those rankings. Those are risk rankings. So we just feel like there's nothing there, so it's not a risk to us. We get that it is somewhat of a priority, but we had to prioritize maintaining our existing infrastructure over the new infrastructure, just because we have limited staff capacity, resources. We can only get so many of these projects done in a certain area at a certain time. So that is where it kind of ending up was in 2025. But yes, we get that it is a priority from a new infrastructure perspective, but we've just kind of listed them in a different way.
Thank you. Director Bodnar and then Director Beckett.
Thank you. There's a couple of things. The main thing is the Cherry Creek Fire Hall. And when I'm looking at all the community works grid that you have made, I was quite taken back by the fact that Bamfield has 200 and some odd residents, and they are asking for $1.8 million. Seems to be really, really out of line. And I know that they did get a lot of gas money earlier. I don't know how much. I don't know the details of that. And the Cherry Creek Fire Department has been condemned and has been on the radar for some time with their concerns. And they are asking for $750,000. I have been in touch with the Improvement District, and they said that they would seriously consider joining the regional district if it means access to gas tax and other funding.
Wow.
Yes, so the improvement district in particular is a little bit challenging for staff. We don't have staff time to investigate what their asset management practices are, what their replacement plans are, to look at their books, to find out what they're doing. And so it's just really hard for staff to make recommendations on something that we are not knowledgeable about. If politically the directors would like to allocate them some funding, that I understand, but we don't have a service for us to spend time learning about what their operations are, or to comment that that priority is larger than, say, Bamfield's. So we've chosen to look at the regional district as a whole. As for a conversion, we haven't had any formal talks from the improvement district about converting at this time. It does open up some different avenues for them. It would give them access to municipal finance authority. It would give them access to the municipal insurance association. So it does give them some different things, but to date, we have not had that conversation even from a staff level in recent years. But would be a conversion, just as a reminder that Beaver Creek Improvement District did come over and access gas tax back in 2012 and converted. They weren't a fire department though. They were a water improvement district as well as parks, whereas Cherry Creek is water and fire. So I think that's all I have to add about that.
I have a question. Is there grants available to take a look at that to see if it's viable?
We haven't looked recently, but I'm going to assume that the province still has conversion money available, because I know that they are slowly trying to remove that level of government and make them into improvement districts, just from it's easier for them to manage on their end. So I would guess that the conversion grants, and we could look into that, are still available.
Okay, at the end of this, I'd like to have someone I could make that motion at the end of our conversation, providing that there's a request letter from Cherry Creek asking us to do that. Okay, I have Director Beckett.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that staff have focused on a risk assessment in prioritizing all of the proposed projects. I'll speak to Director McNabb's park in just a moment, but I just wanted to make the comment that, you know, in the pandemic situation that we're in, getting folks out and about in parks, community halls, basketball courts, et cetera, is very important. So the question I have through the chair to Ms. Fong would be, if we were to move the Beaver Creek Burston Park, the $100,000 up into 2024, what does that do? Is that possible? Do we have to shift funds from 2024 then to 2025? Hopefully you understand what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yes, from a money standpoint, we could do that. I think from a staff standpoint, there are a lot of parks and trails projects, including the parks plans that are going to take significant staff resources. So I think that part of it, us allocating in 2025, was more workflow than it necessarily was the allocation of money. But that's a long time from now, and our work plans are our best guesses. So moving it to 2024, we could definitely do.
Director McNabb?
So when Heather was in the position of she wasn't managing, but she was stick handling
Lands and
parks.
resources
Yeah,
coordinator.
so whatever position, but Department of Silly Walks, whatever it was. She actually did a preliminary plan on this park. Now, I don't know where that lies, but Director Beckett is right. The importance and the risk is there. In that we do not have a child play park and 3,000 people. It is problematic. It's problematic for the health and welfare of the children of Beaver Creek and probably the adults, because the kids can unwind running and screaming around the park instead of running and screaming around the living room. So it's a small amount because the park is flat and level. I'm not looking for Disneyland here. I'm looking for a basic park that kids can play in. And it couldn't be in a better place. It's right beside the fire department. If there's an injury or a problem, it just really is well located, and in the community is well located. And there's even public money that's sitting there and has been sitting there for the last 8 years that's been contributed towards the development of this park. So it is really, in my mind, it's something that shouldn't be at the bottom of the list. It should be at the top of the list. It should have moved its way through priority in the last 8 years. It should be at the top of the pop. We've done a lot of stuff with water. We've done a lot of stuff with the fire department. We've done a lot of stuff with community resources and everything else, but we haven't done this. It's going to be on my epitaph by the time I get to the thing done. It'll be, yeah, but he really wanted a park. Thanks.
Want to be planted there? Sorry about that. I have Mr. Salen, but I'd just like to say that Sprout Lake sees the value of parks. We have a parks commission. We have a huge budget every year. We have contributed major amounts of money into parks and trails. Thankfully, we have accessed multiple grants over the many years that I've been with the regional district. And it has contributed to community well-being, in my opinion. Also, Director, Mike Kukura said we need to support the small community halls within our communities, because they're an important base for our communities. So contributing to those and giving access to recreational and connectivity within our communities is very important. So I do agree, but I don't know how much Director McNabb has sitting there to contribute to a playground, but I think it is important. I have Mr. Salen, and then I have Director Bodner. Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, I just want to reiterate one aspect that Ms. Fong brought up, and that we did use the lens of risk primarily. Population was the second one, and I think that was agreed upon, but the board is not locked into that lens, and so we simply use those lenses per our direction help create a recommendation. Otherwise, it would be extremely challenging to justify each one of them. But this doesn't mean that the board, that this committee doesn't have that ability to navigate outside of that. And I will flag that at a staff level, starting tomorrow, we're going to start reviewing our work plans and the big blocks for the upcoming year. So now is the time, if there are projects that you want to move forward, now is the time to flag those. If we reach a point at a staff level where we feel we just simply can't achieve what is identified, we will come back. we won't remain quiet. We'll come back and we'll flag where the pinch points are, and we'll come with some solutions. So I just want to encourage the dialogue to continue, and if there are elements that you feel should move forward, move them forward, and on our behalf, we'll do our best to see how they fit, and if they don't, we'll come back with some alternatives. So I just want to allow that. I will also flag that we do have a motion that has the staff recommendation there, and it's sounding to me like that will likely fail. And so just as a recommendation, we may want to allow that to fail and then go through Appendix A and just do projects one at a time, which might allow us to move forward. And I know that Ms. Fong is going to be tracking the numbers on a spreadsheet. So if she can wave a hand if we exceed the allocated funds that we have to spend. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have Director Bodner, and then maybe we could look at a motion to at least move the first 2022 selection. Director
Thank
Bodner?
you. Thank you. This is just very short and sweet. I just would like to say I support what Director McNabb has said about the parks. And is there a possibility at looking at the finances for the Maplehurst Park, since there seems to be a lot of money there, that could maybe be contributed to the park that he is asking for?
Yeah, I would just say that these are best guesses at this time. Like, we've done what we have information for. So some of them we have based off of recent projects we've done and just estimated what we think these costs are going to be. Some we actually have detailed designs for. So and the further out in the 4 years you're going out, the less accurate I would say those numbers are, because that's just where we're at in the process. So yeah, we definitely could reallocate some of that 250 and put it towards Nordstrom Park. Really, to be honest, the options are kind of endless with the allocation of this. We've given you our best estimate. It doesn't mean your project won't go through if you don't have enough funding. It just means we're going to have to come up with the difference somewhere else. So whether in Cherry Creek or Maplehurst Park, that would be funding through the Cherry Creek Park Service or other grant opportunities. So that would be my only piece of advice. And it looks like Jenny also has something to add, Director Cote, if she can get a chance at some point.
Yes, please.
Thank you. And just to add to that, we do have a lot of parks projects on the Community Works funding proposed in here. And what we've been trying to do is really look at doing wholesome looks at the parks to see what do we want. And we're doing that through the park management planning, getting the community involved, coming up with a plan, and then moving forward. And it's been fantastic with more and more support towards developing regional parks. Staff has heard that, and we've been really focusing on that over the last year. You guys have received a number of reports looking at, setting service levels and trying to focus on achieving what we need to in the parks. I don't disagree. I actually would love to do all of these park projects and do this immediately and do it all in 2022. I'm on board. I agree. And as soon as we talk about each of the parks, I kind of get excited. I'm like, yes, let's do that. But we had to be very critical when we were talking about timing and when we could actually achieve each of these projects. And that's why we have kind of stretched them out. We put planning in front, sort of, we have like a list of parks that we're trying to do plans for ahead of time before doing major investments. If you want to shift up the timeline, I don't disagree with that. A lot of them, I think, especially for 2022, we still need to do a bit of planning and we are a little bit allocated. But some of the projects that are a little further out, we could shift those up a couple of years if there was really eagerness for that. And as reiterating what Terry said, we really do need to make sure that we're getting good cost estimates in there as well. and tweaking out those things. We're also seeing a lot of increased and elevated costs as we go, challenges with volunteers. The parks are really fun, but also really challenging. So we're happy to hear that so much enthusiasm. I'd like to appreciate that as well.
Thank you for that. Director Shannon.
Thank you. I've got some notes and kind of ideas, suggestions to possibly discuss for our list, but I'm happy to go ahead and if we want to start with failing the motion that we've got on the table right now to go into Appendix A. However we want to.
Okay, okay, are we ready to take a vote then? Is there any other comments? Okay, Director Beckett?
I just wanted to throw my support behind the endeavor to improve or to acquire and move forward with the Beaver Creek Northston Park. And I had mentioned 2024, but after listening to staff member Jenny, I would support John if he wanted to move that to 2023. That's all I have to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So no further comments. We'll take a vote on the oh, Director McNabb.
So I guess the procedure would be to amend, to look for an amendment to the motion. Is that the direction that the chair wants to go with this, or what? How do you?
No, I think that we need to.
We can't move the motion. I can't support it in the condition it's in at the moment.
Right. So our administrator has said that we should probably defeat this motion and then start forming our own. Yes, Ms. Fong.
So we kind of anticipated this, Director McNabb, which is why on Appendix A, we've actually, which is page 32 and 33 of your agenda, the last two pages, we've kind of listed them out individually, so it's all the same projects that are in the top, but instead of being in a table, we've just listed them individually for you guys to pass. So that would be one. If you're going to make a whole lot of changes, I would suggest that's what we do. If you're planning on just making a couple tweaks to the table, then we probably could keep up with those as amending motions. But if you're wanting quite a few changes, I would recommend defeating the motion and let's go through in order of Appendix A, if that makes sense.
That sounds good to me. So I guess we'll call a question on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? That's defeated. So now we can start on Appendix A or others. I also would like to mention that I don't know if we have costs on playgrounds or playground equipment. Sprout Lake Community Association recently looked at some playground equipment and it came in at $150,000 without installation, so, or 120 plus transporting it there, and it's very expensive. So that was one piece. So just saying, we need estimates before we can roll right through. So now, do we want to start making motions via the Appendix A, or is there any other further conversation? Director Shannon.
Thank you. Okay, I'm working on thoughts I had that I want to throw to everybody to see how, sorry, I'm just trying to get everything in front of me here. I prefer paper to a computer screen. Okay, so if we're looking at this, and Terry, for clarification, in Appendix A, we're not going to find the 4 that we removed from the beginning of this meeting, correct?
No, because you passed that motion, that money is just extra pot of money to go. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what I've been looking at is if we look at what we are looking at to kind of allocate to our fire halls over this next period, we've got 500,000 for Sprout Lake in 2022, 350,000 in 2023 for Beaver Creek, and 400,000 in 2024 for Banfield. We're talking about, we've got an extra 636,000 that we've created from our first motion. I realize that Cherry Creek has requested 750,000, but if for right now, if we're willing to allocate even a mean of what our other fire departments are getting, call it 400,000 to give something their way if we're going to discuss, or if they want to have discussions about joining the regionals district, it's something to get them started. And if for right now that gets them going and they need to source the other 350, I don't know if that's feasible or not for how fire departments work. If it's they need the whole 750 or nothing. That was just kind of my idea, looking at what the other fire halls are getting at this point as we look at it. So I'm going to leave that for discussion first, and then I've got a couple other things.
Thank you. My conversation with Chief Banton was that they were having a hard time borrowing the money. So because they're a water district. So Director McNabb.
So just on a point of order, we're skipping that page 15, which has the two motions in it, and going to the appendix at page 33 or whatever it is. Is that what we intend to do, or it just doesn't seem like it's the way we should be attacking this? I think we should be doing 15 first and then going back, or going down the list. Am I right? Somebody that's a parliamentarian?
McNabb, you're referring to the options considered in Terry's report. Are those the two that you're asking if we've not considered?
We're going right back to page 35, which is the end of the agenda. I just looking, is that what we're supposed to be doing?
Perhaps I can add to that, Chair.
Sure.
So you are correct, but we're jumping over those options, and the reason why at this point we'd recommend going through Appendix A is that outside of those options, we've taken all of the projects and identified them as individual motions so that the board can go through each one of the projects as they see them, prioritized and make those motions. So, for example, on the discussion that Director Shannon is flagging, if the recommendations were to address fire halls first, we can look at Appendix A and we can discuss the funding for fire halls first. And each one of them can be found and they're numbered, so we can specifically speak to which one out of that appendix we want to move or not move. It just would allow us to move through each one of those in a, I think, I'm hoping, a little bit of an easier way, because there's quite a few of them for us to address.
So
Director Shannon has a question.
okay, Director Shannon, please.
Thank you. Would it be easier to look at this as if we're looking at Appendix A 1 through 18, and how it's broken up, and consider the options considered of Beaver Creek Community Club and Cherry Creek Hall as 19 and 20? Or does that
Ask staff, that would be how we should do this.
Yeah, we definitely can. So again, oh, sorry, Daniel. So the ones at the end are based on what the resolution was in two, like it just broke it out. So that is the staff recommendation part of them broken apart. And then the outside organizations, we just ended up listing under options considered. So yes, I would say it would probably be best to deal with them as number 19 and 20. But again, we can go in whatever order you guys would like. These are ordered by year. So the projects that were 2022 focused start at the top, and then we move into the later years after that. But Wendy can cut and paste as we need, so we could deal with the fire departments first if those are the ones that you feel have the most importance. We'll just keep crossing them off as we go. So
is there a motion then for that? So I'm not sure how we want to go about this. We could pull out the fire departments, or we can go one through. Personally, I'd like to just do the first 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of the projects for 2022, and just approve those, and then move from there and add or subtract, whatever.
I concur with that.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I would
Director
make that
Beckett?
motion.
Oh, okay, Director Beckett and Director Roberts. So we have to approve 1 through 7, the proposed 2022 projects for the gas tax. Director Shannon?
Thank you. For discussion, if we're talking 2022, I would like, I'm looking at this extra money we've created. I would really like to see if we're going to consider the $50,000 for the Beaver Creek Community Club as an outside organization, that $50,000 goes in 2022, because that should, and Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, should not affect staff time and be too cumbersome for us, and to try get that money to them so they can continue on with the projects for that playground. Thank you.
Okay, I would agree, but we can add that this is not the complete 2022 list, but just from staff's recommendations, I'd like to get those out of the way so that we can start moving forward on this. Okay, is there any other comments on 1 through 7? If not, all in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. We're all in favor. That carries. Okay, now, moving forward, is there anything that people want to add to 2022? And Director Shannon, that would be, okay. Do you want to make a motion?
I would like to make the motion to approve the $50,000 requested by the Beaver Creek Community Club for continued park improvements for a washroom facility to be added to the 2022 Community Works Funds.
Okay, was that a second, Director McNabb?
And a comment.
Okay,
I think it should be subject to them changing the name to the Beaufort Community Club.
don't think we can tell them that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Is there any other comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. I just have to say, I agree with that. Beaufort has very little opportunities to use the gas tax, and it's well spent money, in my opinion. Okay, is there any other? Director McNabb?
So I would like to move that we allocate the $100,000 to the Beaver Creek Park development, even just so the staff can get going on it. And I don't expect the project to be finished in 2022, but I expect it to start.
Is that a seconder? Director Beckett? Okay. Is there comments? So just a comment to staff. That would limit them to what they could actually put in there. without estimates of playground equipment, so. Or do you have a,
We don't have a plan or an estimate, but it would get us some ability to start getting that because there isn't much of a reserve fund for that service. So it would give us some funding to get that project moving.
okay, great. Director McNabb?
So, I mean, in 2023, if we get the plan going and get the estimates of what it's going to cost, I mean, we can build it into the park service for Beaver Creek for 2023. And as I say, Heather did a relatively complete plan that's on the books somewhere. And, I mean, the estimates were, like you said, with regards to the playground equipment, were significant. But they were, I mean, it's a 3-year-old estimate with nothing gone forward. So we just need to get started. We're never going to start out. We're never going to finish it.
Great, okay. We have a motion on these? Yeah, that one? Okay.
Yes, we do.
Yapping here. Sorry, what was that, Wendy?
Sorry, were you requesting if we had a motion on that?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, just bear with me 1 second here. Yes, we do. Thank you.
And we haven't approved it yet.
No, it was Director Matt
Oh.
McNabb, Director Beckett, and that's the
Okay.
allocation of community works funds to the Beaver Creek Park development, the amount of $100,000 in 2022.
Okay,
The
great.
Starting in 2022.
Great, thank you. So is there any more comments on this or questions? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, now, should we continue on through into 2022, or how's our time going? What would staff like us to do?
Sure, if you want to continue and for discussion purposes anyways, starting with number 8 on Appendix A, which is the Bamfield Development Plan for Area A Bamfield in the amount of $100,000 for the year 2023. So we're into the 2023 projects now.
Okay. So, Director Beckett?
I'd like to move that. And I'll speak to that after, should it be passed, or
Okay.
should it be seconded?
Director Shannon seconded. Great. Okay, Director Beckett.
Thank you. As you know, we're all facing considerable growth, but with the road being anticipated to be completed in 2023, we're already seeing a huge uptake and interest in the community, and we are behind the 8 ball, quite frankly. So this is an opportunity to engage the community, to get staff working diligently on planning for the growth that's already begun, and it really is an important project, not only for Banfield but for the entire region. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Director McNabb?
So,
Comment?
But just like to clarify how far down this list we're going, because it doesn't actually say 2020, oh, there, 2023. Okay, so we're doing till 12. Is that correct? We're doing 8 to 12?
That was just him passing just number 8.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
He
All
was,
right.
yeah, just talking number 8. I think at this point, it would probably be best to go one at a time to discuss them.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion for Bamfield Development Plan for 2023. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
You're muted, Director Cote.
Sorry. Okay, next is the Beaver Creek Volunteer Fire Department upgrade for $350,000. Director McNabb?
So I would move this motion, but what they're doing is, because of the new regulations, they're providing space for change rooms, lockers, and equipment. It's an active department that sees a lot of calls, and I think that it's necessary that we support that development. Thank you. So I've moved that.
Director Shannon, second. Thank you. Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Thank you. All right. Next is the Cherry Creek Maplehurst parking lot. Director Bodnar?
Yes, I would, I understand there's no magic wand, but I really, because of all the pressure that Director McNabb and I are getting regarding parking there, I would like to see that perhaps go to a higher level than low. There is absolutely no place for those cars to park except for on the road. The ditches are on both sides. And when we get complaints about people saying, I can't get into my driveway and nobody's around, it's they're pretty irate. So I do feel that should be up at least another level.
Again, I just want to remind their risk levels. They're not priority levels, and the park itself, like the roads are not actually our jurisdiction. So it's the park itself that is the level, but we recognize the concerns for the area. And I have heard discussion today at this meeting about possibly moving that in 2022 in case we have the ability to get started later in the fall with some costs. I don't think we have the ability to finish that project by any means in 2022, but if we do want to allocate the funding this year so that we can get started on it, if all the plans line up, we could do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is a common problem all over. Sprout Lake has Faber Park also, which it's not a dead end road, but it's a very quiet little road. And the city tourist bureau was actually directing people to that little park with no parking, and they were blocking people's driveways, etc. They actually have a block watch in that little community, and they've talked to the Sprout Lake Parks and myself about trying to remediate the problem of people parking in their driveways on the road. They speed by, they come, they party there. So it's a problem all over the place. So I can definitely understand what the problem that you're facing is. So do you want to, does staff have the ability to actually take this on in 2022? Yes, Ms. Bryn?
Yes, so similar to what Terry said, we can allocate the money in 2022. The likelihood of us being able to successfully complete it is very low. I actually believe that we would be in design. We also have issues with property and licenses, and logistically speaking, I think that it's very low probability. I don't think we need the money in 2022, but if you wanted to, you could allocate it. We will roll it forward in the next budget. It would give us access to start spending money out of that account if we have the ability to move forward. So I don't see any harm in putting the allocation in 2022.
Okay. Then do we want to make that motion? I lost Director Bodnar. Oh,
Yes, we're just trying to get Director Bodnar back.
okay. Director McNabb.
So one of the risk issues here is that because that is a dead end road, the fire hydrant is right there, and people are parking on top of the fire hydrant. If we have a brush fire or something in that park that people are utilizing at the moment, or a fire on one of the properties adjacent to it, it is going to be a significant risk with people parking the way they are parking, because they're randomly parking everywhere. So it's, even if we had an occurrence there where somebody broke their leg or something hiking, getting an ambulance in there and out of there would be very difficult. I mean, we just got to back it up because that's what you have to do for about a block and a half. So I think there is a priority to this, both to Cherry Creek because it is their park and it's basically inaccessible except for this dead end road, and B, because it's just a nightmare for the people that live there. So thank you. So I would move that we apply the funding for 2022 with the explanation that we doubt that staff can get it done, but we want them to be able to start.
Okay, is there a seconder? Director Shannon? Okay, is there any further questions? Director Shannon?
Thank you. Just a question. If there was supposed to be a cul-de-sac in that area, was that the responsibility of Main Road? Is that a conversation that staff would have with Main Road if they be funding on their end to help with this? Just an idea. I mean, we don't have to discuss that today, but just as we're looking at this. Thank you.
Staff, please.
Through the chair, that's correct. The roads in the electoral areas are the responsibility of Ministry of Transportation, and we work with Main Road. It's one of the factors, and it is a complicated issue, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed?
Just to say that Director Bodnar likely doesn't know what the motion is.
Oh, can we have the motion, please?
Yes, I could read that. The Electoral Area Directors Committee approved the allocation of community works funds in the draft 2022 to 2026 financial plan in the year 2022 for the Cherry Creek Maplehurst parking lot area of Cherry Creek in the amount of $200,000 in order for staff to start this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you.
Just to let you know, I seem to be having some audio problems. I'll play with it.
We can hear you. That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next on the list is the broadband. Okay. Okay, broadband connectivity study, the amount of $20,000 for 2023. Director Shannon?
Oh my God. Okay. Hi. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to move this motion, and I will wait for a seconder and I'll make my comment.
Director McNabb?
I'll second that.
Oh, Director Roberts. Okay.
And I just want to thank staff for putting this on here and having it not this year, but at least next year, because what I hear most from a lot of students, especially, and I'm sure everybody has in the rural areas, we're seeing it as an issue, is the internet and cell phone connections with having the ability to work from home and hybrid and everything with COVID. So thank you for putting this on there.
I'd like to let you know that TELUS has approached me about cell service within the Sprout Lake area anyways, but line of sight, I can see the Rogers Tower in Beaver Creek, and I'm sure that it works out there, so might help if TELUS can put a tower into or co-locate. So
Yeah.
that's in the works.
If they want to talk to somebody else, send them my way.
Okay, will do. Okay, so on this motion, is there any further comments? Hearing none, call a question on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Okay, next is parks management plans. for $50,000 for 2023.
I think it's, are you number 12? I think it's electoral area official community plans. Not, you said parks management plans, but it's actually the electoral area official community plans. We've already passed the motion regarding the parks.
Oh, okay, we have?
It
Okay.
was part of the 2022 set.
Oh, okay, great. Working off of different sheets here, so. Okay, so now we're to the electoral area official community plan development. Important. Director Shannon.
Just move the motion.
Okay, thank you. Director McNabb, second. Okay, all in favor? Or is there any question?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right. Now I believe we're on to 2024. Maybe works. Just a second here. Community work funds, number 11.
We're on number 13, I believe.
13.
Which
Okay.
is for the Bamfield Water System West Side Transmission Line.
Okay,
Oops, I shouldn't say development plan. That should just say line for Area A Bamfield in the amount of 850,000 for 2024. I will just add that staff believe, as much as we put this in there because it's an important project, we actually feel like it makes a very great grant application. And so we think that it'll meet the criteria of those of specified grant applications that pop up from time to time. But it is here for your consideration.
okay, thank you. Director Beckett,
I'd like to move that and speak to it if it's second.
is there a seconder?
Second. Second.
Okay, Director Roberts. Director Beckett, you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Chair. Certainly, and I don't know if Jenny needs to speak to it as well, but you know, we did have it in we had a grant application in. We were not successful, but this is becoming extremely problematic for our community. We've had a number of significant leaks with water outages requiring the west side to boil water, and it is not going away. It is a considerable liability for the community. Jenny, I don't know through the chair if you need to add anything to that.
If I may,
Yes, please.
through the chair, that's correct. We see this as one of the highest risk projects because it is to do with water and basically the provision of water. So we are working at this problem in a number of ways. We have worked on repairing and remediating the issue as much as possible. As Terry had mentioned, we're looking at grants. We have another grant opportunity, and this will be coming before the board on the 26th. We will apply again. Unfortunately, Bamfield was successful in getting grant funding for the water treatment plant, which can work against it because that means that as they try to be fair in doling money out, but it is a high risk project and it does hit the key notes. The biggest challenge, of course, is a small community with a very small number of properties trying to fund a water system. So we see it as a high risk. We will continue to try to fund it and be as creative as possible. We are looking at development cost charges and just innumerable ways to raise money for the water system.
Director McNabb.
So this is the project that really creates the imbalance in the allocation of funding. Beaver Creek has a very, very similar problems to this with the asbestos cement lines that are throughout the whole system. We've got a problematic leak that is almost right across from our fire hall that has come back several times. It's on Beaver Creek Road, and I'm not sure if it's in the plan to be fixed, like completely fixed in the future, but I know that in my tenure that line has broke 3 times that I know of, and throughout our whole system, Smith Road, it is a next project. I mean, we've had two projects that we've escaped by rolling the service into the city, which is not something I really want to do. I want to be in control of our service, but because of cost and funding, we've had to do that. And Karen Place is a project that we're completely funding through our water system without grant money, and it's in a neighborhood that's developing, so there are a lot of new houses and so forth in there. I mean, I get that they've got the problem, but we've got the same problem, just in a different format. And by allocating all of this money, $850,000 to this project without basically community funding coming forward on it, or some other grant funding coming forward on it, really puts Beaver Creek in a poor position. What I would like to see happening is that a portion of community works funding is going towards our Karen Place project, so that we've got that reserve available to go on to the next project, which are ongoing in our district. Like every year for the next 20 years, we're going to have major waterworks problems in Beaver Creek. And, as other areas, we take on other areas, like if Cherry Creek decides that they're going to come together with us, they're going to be facing the same situation. And if Sprout Lake ends up taking over the water system at Great Central Lake, this kind of issue is going to be there. And by sort of putting all our eggs in one basket, I see it as problematic. I'm quite willing to support and portion this project, but I don't see us biting the whole bullet.
Thanks. Is there a proposed amount or something that you would put forward?
Well, I'd just like to say, I've got a great deal of respect for Bob. He's a great guy and he does an excellent job for his community. But, I really think that we should be looking at a maximum $500,000 and let the chips fall where they may from that. And the staff can still go out and look for grant money to facilitate this thing, but it's all about the money coming out of each and every area's tax base. And so it's like Beaver Creek contributing $250,000 to this project. It's really what it's like. So thanks.
Thank
I would
you.
move that.
Okay, I think we have a motion on the table already, so.
So to clarify, is that an amending motion? To reduce
Yes.
the amount to 500?
Yes.
So do we have to have the seconder?
Yes, we require a seconder, please.
That was Director Roberts, I think, that seconded.
Director Bodnar, I think.
That's correct.
So are you agreeing to the amended motion? To second it? Director Roberts?
I'm sorry. What are you looking for here?
You seconded the motion, so I'm wondering if you would agree to second the amended motion? Or do we need the same?
I just have some concerns that as was mentioned, that if this money, this $850,000 is allocated for this project, the Brownfield Water System, west side, that if it meets the criteria for other money allocated or gained, if you will, that if it qualifies for it, then there will be money left over that could be, in fact, utilized for Beaver Creek or any other area. Is that correct?
Yeah, so whenever we don't allocate some money, there will be money remaining unallocated for either us to allocate at this point or to allocate at a future point.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure that I support
Okay.
$500,000. Go ahead.
So at this point,
Director
I
Bodnar was a
like,
seconder there too.
okay, so we can, okay, so we do have a seconder for the amended motion then, Director Bodnar. Okay, so have Director Shannon and then Director Beckett.
Thank you. I have a couple comments because I do have to get going. So unfortunately, I will be missing the last of the ones that we are voting on. In regards to this discussion on this motion, I completely understand where Director McNabb is coming from. This is into 2024, so it's a couple years away. So I feel like there's a little bit of time to be looking for grant money, and it's there. And I mean, if we want to be more equitable between the areas and we want to say put 500,000 to Bamfield, 200 to Beaver Creek for the time being, and then other in a contingency just for water at this point, it can be moved around. We can still play with it. I don't know if that's feasible or not. That's just kind of my mindset, how we might be look at this, because we're looking at a couple years away. And then because I have to go, I did just want to reiterate, Terry will correct me if I'm wrong, but if my math is correct, there's still 476,000 sitting over from our first resolution after we've taken out 150,000 between Nordstrom Park and Beaver Creek Community Club from the 636,000.
So those were just shuffling of money that we did have them in the resolution. So we actually have 586,000 thereabouts from that first, because all we've subtracted from that amount is the 50.
The 50. Okay.
Yeah, so we're at about 586. And again, these are kind of estimates because we do earn interest on these accounts as time goes on. So I would say I would be comfortable to say that we have about 600,000 remaining.
Okay, and then I get, just for when you guys get to it, when we get back to the fire departments, I would still, I mean, my suggestion is we're still around the same number that the other fire halls are at for what we offer to Cherry Creek if it's approved when we get there. And unfortunately, I have to bow out, but I really appreciate staff's work, everybody's discussions, and I will see you guys at 1:30.
Thank you. Director Beckett.
Thank you, Chair. When Director McNabb was referring to me with some personal qualities, he forgot to mention charming and good looking. I wanted to ask through the chair, Ms. Fong, assuming that we passed the motion for $500,000, would that actually help in a grant application where you're identifying that the community via this funding was prepared to put some money up front for this?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So these are federal dollars. And so sometimes they have stacking requirements that state, or limitations that state you can't stack federal dollars on top of federal dollars. They have been tending to remove those stacking issues in the past couple of years, so that might not be an issue. The thing is that it is other grant funding. It's not necessarily the community chipping in for it. However, the community is already paying debt on the Bamfield Water Treatment Center and does put money away every year. So we can already prove that Bamfield is contributing to this system, that it's just a challenging system to create, but $500,000 would help for sure. I think we could, it's always going to help. We'll just look at creative solutions of how we can make up the difference. So yes, I would think that would be of benefit to us today.
Based on that, Madam Chair, and a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, I would be supportive of that. It demonstrates very um, word giving board for my colleagues to recognize the challenges that we have there and support that to the tune that you're proposing is very much appreciated. And I would be supportive of the absolution.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further comments? Okay, so this motion, amended motion, is to contribute. Oh, I'll get Wendy to read it back.
Yes, thank you. So we have an amending motion on the floor right now, and it's to reduce the allocation amount to 500,000 to the Bampa Water System West Side transmission line. So reducing from 850 to 500.
Okay. And I do recognize that I really like the risk sheet that staff provided, identifying this as a huge risk to the regional district, which in fact we all own that water system when it comes down to the risk. So assisting somewhat in this, I think, is very important. I also want to point out that I don't know if it was $450,000 that was allocated in the past to Sprout Lake Water on Bell Road is no longer in play. So you're talking about extra money. A lot of that is coming out of the allocated money that went to Sprout Lake, which now increases what our by population is, I don't know, up over $800,000 or something. I'd like to, in the future, allocate a little bit more to my fire hall, that construction that's coming forward, because that's really going to hit my community hard, especially looking at the BC assessments and allocation of no longer receiving homeowner grants in many cases, I'm sure. So the $500,000 to Banfield, absolutely, I support that. It's 2024, so that's a few years out, and hopefully we can get the grant and then that money comes back into play. And hopefully by that time, my area of Bell Road will actually be able to get some water because that is a problem. I'd also like to say, oh, I don't think that's on here. I've got two lists going. Yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that. I just want to say that I do support this to the $500,000 because it is such a high risk for us all. And I do see that Beaver Creek also is a high risk, the water. Unfortunately, Cherry Creek is not our liability, and hopefully they will change over to become a regional district service in the future so that we can help them. So at this time, is there any further comments on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
So Madam Chair, now we need a motion as amended, to vote on the motion as amended. So we just need to vote on the original motion as amended.
You're muted, Penny.
Sorry. All right, so now we vote on the original motion as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carried. Thank you. All right. Next one is the Banfield West Side Fire Hall. Director Beckett?
I'd like to move that, please.
And Director McNabb, second. Okay, any comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right. Now, Great Central Lake Boat Launch and Parking Area. This is another one of those parking area problematic. Great Central Lake is growing. There is 1,000+ people going down the lake to Della Falls. Our parking lot is problematic as far as parking goes, and garbage. There was a porta potty put there this year to assist, which has helped a lot. And anyways, there's a motion on the floor, or motion to allocate community works funds in 2024 for the Great Central Lake Boat Launch and Parking Area. Director McNabb?
So I would move that if you haven't.
Okay, move seconder. Director Bodner? Okay, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Thank you. Okay. Number 16, so approve or deny the allocation of community work funds for the Alberni Valley Electoral Area Flood Plain Bylaw. Someone want to explain this, or Director McNabb?
So I'd move the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Not hearing a seconder.
We have a little explanation on that.
Thank you.
Be happy to do that through the chair here. Thank you. So this project would build upon the SOMAS watershed flood management plan, which was completed over the last year. The bylaw would allow us, the floodplain bylaw would allow us to establish minimum setbacks and flood construction levels for structures within the flood hazard area, allow us to differentiate between uses such as habitable space versus accessory buildings as an example, and regulate other uses within that flood hazard area such as campgrounds, recreational vehicles, hazardous materials, and things like that. The bylaw can include site design standards, which we don't have the ability to do now, exemptions for low risk uses, and criteria for assessments. And just so everybody knows, right now, the building inspectors are requiring geotechnical assessments for any building permits for a building within the designated flood area already. But the floodplain bylaw creates additional powers for us to ensure safe development within those areas. And happy to answer any questions.
To staff, it seems to me that right now it's quite problematic with building. And I'm surprised that this is put in 2024 and not earlier. Also, I'm wondering if there's any grants available that would help us to get information provided for making this bylaw. To staff question.
I can talk about the grant thing. All of these projects, well, probably not the 2022 ones because of the quick turnaround, but all of the projects we'll be continuing to look for grant funding for, as even though they're on the list, especially as they're getting more shovel ready. So yeah, we'll definitely be searching for something that gives us an alternate so that we can free up some of this money. I know that from speaking of the timeline aspect of it, there's a lot of work that the planning department has coming up, including finishing the zoning bylaw, OCP rewrites, the Bamfield development plan, the liquid waste management plan, that really 2024 was kind of when they thought it was realistic that they could tackle a project of this size. So that was a bit of why it got chosen there.
Okay, I just recognize that it's quite problematic at the moment for builders without set, bylaws and regulations and policies and whatnot in place that aren't there at this point. requiring a geotech report, I don't think is quite enough for what's happening out there as in Sprout Lake anyways. Area. Okay, so is there a motion? Someone prepared to make this motion? Yeah, oh, you did. We needed a seconder.
That's correct.
Director Bodnar? Okay, thank you. Is there any questions on this? Seeing none, call a question. Oh. Okay, it doesn't seem to be passing. Director McNabb?
They called a question, but no, I didn't say for a vote.
All in favor? Okay, we only have, it would be a tie, I guess.
If I may, Chair.
Yes.
Even though
Please.
Director Beckett is not in the screen, technically speaking, he's still at the meeting, and
Okay.
a silent vote is a vote in the affirmative. So
Okay. All right, so then that passes. All right, thank you.
You're muted again, Penny.
Okay, Banfield Playground is on for 2025. There's a motion request for $100,000. Director McNabb,
I would move that motion.
is there a seconder?
Second.
Okay, any question on this? Call a question, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes, thank you.
You're muted again, Penny.
Just looking at number 18, so I believe we did this already?
Yes, we did that one. I would say the only other one that I've heard discussion about today is an allocation of some funding towards Cherry Creek Fire Department is the only thing that we haven't discussed or made a motion regarding today. And in terms of eligible funding, I've been furiously typing around here, and we have about $600,000 that unallocated at this time that we could allocate, that is eligible to be allocated to them if the director so choose.
if I may, through the chair as well,
Yes, please.
just add that there were two other elements that were shared. I believe there was a comment for a desire to look into conversion grants for Cherry Creek. And so that would still need to become a motion. And I believe a discussion around leaving some allocated funds for Sprout Lake Fire Department was also expressed as a desire. So actually 3 things for us to discuss.
Okay, great. Director Bodnar.
Thank you. I really appreciate everybody trying to make an effort here to help us out there in Cherry Creek. And I'm sure that they would be appreciative of whatever funds they could possibly get. So I just want to put that comment in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion then regarding a grant for conversion from Cherry Creek, provided Cherry Creek provide a letter for that request.
I don't understand that.
So for Cherry Creek to convert to their waterworks or fire department, converting to a regional district service, I'd like to see if the regional district can find a grant that would take into consideration what the asset is, what the liabilities and costs for conversion would be, how it would affect the regional district, providing that the Cherry Creek Fire Department or Waterworks provide the regional district with a letter requesting that we do this. Director Bodnar?
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that they would not have access to any funding then unless they join the regional district. Is that what you're saying?
It's not what I'm saying, but it would make things a lot easier because I think that Cherry Creek, and my own opinion is that Cherry Creek is in a position where you don't have the ability to access municipal finance borrowing, and the amount of money that we can provide with gas tax is limited. So I don't know where Cherry Creek is going to be able to borrow the remainder of the money without regional district assistance. So we could allocate the money, but if you can't get the rest of the money, it's being tied up, similar to what Bell Road Water was. So Director McNabb, you?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that just the stacking of these two motions is problematic. Just the optics of it, it looks like we're trying to force Beaver Creek or Cherry Creek to convert, and really it's going to be their decision. I mean, I've spoken to previous directors of the waterworks system, or the Cherry Creek Improvement District, and it has been recognized at their table that this is going to be something that's going to happen by and by. And as they get into treatment plant with regards to their water system, even the ability to service expansion, yada yada, they get that. I think I really would like to deal with the fire department issue first, and then provide an option for them to look at converting to Beaver Creek service, or Beaver Creek service, not a Beaver Creek. We don't want it. To regional district service. So I give that back to the chair and just say, like, the optics to me just don't work right. So the reverse of it, where we talk about the fire department funding first and then deal with this as an option for them in the future.
Okay.
And if you'd like, I'd make a motion and then we can just kind of go from there if you like.
Okay.
We don't have a motion on the floor that I know of at the moment.
I'll withdraw what I've put forward.
Okay. So I would move the Alberni Claycourt Regional District electoral area directors allocate $500,000 to the Beaver Creek or Cherry Creek Fire Hall in rebuild, and that it be subject to staff scrutiny of asset management and other items that are necessary for community works funding.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Director Bodnar, any question?
Can I just confirm that is for the year 2022?
Say again?
Which year?
What
Yeah,
year?
just confirming which year.
Which year? I guess it's got to be 2022 because they're likely going to be having the ball rolling.
So, okay. Wait. And we have a seconder for that?
Yes, we did, Director Bodnar.
Okay. Is there any question? No, hearing none. Okay. Call a question. All in favor?
Uh,
That's 3.
Director Beckett is still on the line, so,
No, Director Beckett has
Oh, sorry.
emailed that he has a lab appointment at 1:30.
sorry, I meant Director Roberts is still on the
Director.
line.
Yes. Okay,
correct.
Director Beckett, I believe, is still technically there. So
No, Director Beckett has emailed here to me that I must run for lab work to see you at 1:30. So while he's on, camera's on, he's not. Lights are on, but nobody's home.
which would be problematic then for quorum as well.
Not really. We've got 4
Okay,
out of 5.
4 to 6. That's correct. Sorry. Yep.
what is it? Okay, so
We need to know,
we need to know about Director Beckett.
no, not Director Beckett. Cal. Cal's on the line, but hasn't voted.
That's correct.
That's right.
I
So
just think it's
there's,
a little premature for 2022, but so I leave it with the rest of the directors to.
I think,
discuss it.
I agree. I think that it is a little premature. We do have time. This is the electoral area directors meeting. The board will have final say as to moving forward with gas tax. So we still have time. It would be nice to know what the direction of Cherry Creek Fire Department is, what the community wants going forward. I would like to support this, but at this moment, for 2022, I'm not in favor of moving forward on this project. But we can bring it back. So there was 2 in favor and 2 opposed. So at this time, we
So-
don't pass this, right?
So I just to speak on that, Madam Chair.
Yes.
If this is going to be defeated and we bring it back to the board of directors, then the whole table will be voting on it versus the electoral area directors. So, I'm fine with that. We can bring it back to a board of directors meeting and we can speak on it and go from there.
Okay, is that, okay, so that request is denied at this moment then, for now. Recognizing, just want to ask Ms. Fong, so after the budget passes and things progress through the year, can we add this into the, amend the budget to add this?
Yeah, we definitely could. We'll have another EA discussion, committee discussion as well in advance of adopting the budget. So
Okay.
there, we could bring it back at that time if you like, as well as I know this won't cover the whole cost of their fire hall. So if we were to allocate it for 2023, later in this year, we wouldn't really need to do a financial plan amendment, but would give them the funding to complete the project if we committed to it at that point. So yeah, there'd be some options for sure.
Okay, great. So recognizing, we're missing a number of members from the electoral area directors as well. And I would like them to have the opportunity to vote on this also. So we'll just bring this back at a further date. So it's not completely off the table, it's just not today. The last thing was regarding the Sprout Lake Fire Hall, allocating more funding to that. The request for that is because it is high risk. We need that fire hall now also, and we'll be building this year, as I understand. So I'd like to allocate some more money for that, since Sprout Lake has, by population, has more money that hasn't been allocated and some has been withdrawn from Bell Road Water. So I'd like to reallocate some more money for the future in 2023 for the Spirit Lake Fire Hall. Yes.
So 2024 is our pinch point at this point. Based on the motions we've made so far, we only have $600,000 remaining in 2024 that is unallocated, and that doesn't count any allocation towards the Cherry Creek Fire Hall project. So just keeping that in mind as you go to pass a greater allocation, that if you do that, then that would take the Cherry Creek project off the table.
Okay. We're looking at another, what, $1.5 million for the fire hall, and also having to buy another fire truck. So our budget is really stretched for the near future. So I would like to look at that. I guess what I'll do is I'll bring that back at a future electoral area directors meeting as well, so that we can discuss that at that time when all the directors are available.
If I may, I think it might be good to keep the 600 out unallocated at this time. It will allow us to have the discussion. We can bring it back. We're talking about 2024, and certainly with more information, I think it might be useful for the committee to have that additional information if we can have it and bring it back for further discussion. I don't have thoughts right now, but I think there might be some wisdom there, and we've had a long run of a lot of allocations. There's nothing wrong with keeping 600 in abeyance until we have further discussion.
Okay. So that's it then at this time. Was there anything else that needed to be discussed or anything? Okay, is there any questions from the public?
We have no public participating in the meeting today and no emails received.
Okay, so at this time, move adjournment. Thank you. All
So
in
moved.
favor? Thank
Aye.
you. All right, all in favor. Thank you. We'll see you all at 1:30. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.